Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on this Virtual Summit podcast. And I am super excited about today's episode. I'm bringing my good friend, Jose Aviles, with me on today's podcast episode. How you doing today, Jose?
I'm doing great, man. Super pumped to be here, man.
It's going to be so much fun, and our summit hosts are in for such a treat. Now, Jose's got a lot of knowledge and a lot of information. He's helped coach quite a bit of people in the summit world. He runs the Virtual Summit Labs and Freedom.com. And so he's got some amazing insight, not in just with summits, but also in marketing in general. And we're going to cover some pretty specific topics today that you, the summit hosts, are going to need to hear. Specifically, a paid marketing strategy, which is going to be fundamental and important if you really want to have some amazing success on your summit. And then, of course, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the content, how to structure it, how to set it up, what are some to-dos and to-not-dos. But before we get into all of that, Jose, I would love for you to tell the audience just a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, yeah. Like you said, I've been doing virtual summits for a while. I've coached a lot of people in virtual summits. I first got started in the prepping and survival niche, doing summits in that niche, which to me was like I was figuring it out as I went. The benefit I think I had over a lot of people, like I was like corporate professional project manager, actually certified manager. So for me, I just took a virtual summit like if it was another project. So I had the beginning, I had the data was going in. So I just kind of worked backwards on deadlines and stuff that I needed to get done. So that I think set me apart as far as like instead of being disorganized, because there are a lot of moving parts. But long story short, I ran my first summit and had my first success online after selling everything from eBay marketing thing to whatever. It was like my first really good size success. And from there, I just kind of kept building on. I did 5 summits before I did anything else on that market. And then all of a sudden, I started getting people asking me about how to do, I first started with a few people in that same market. And then through the marketing groups and other groups, I met a lot of other entrepreneurs that wanted to do virtual summits, and it was through Freedom actually. Before it was Ryan Lee's platform that I met a lot of people that needed help with that, and then they started reaching out, and all of a sudden I started coaching and helping a lot of people. It was really kind of like, okay, I did it for myself. Let me see if I could help you. And at first it was just kind of like people that I knew that were kind of friends. And all of a sudden they started having success and kind of a light bulb. And I was like, oh, there's something here. And that from then it just kind of became, I was in behind the scenes over about 10 summits at that point. And then it was just, I was pulling too many levers and pushing too many buttons. And I was like, I like the marketing and helping the strategy. I don't like the whole doing the actual stuff. So I kind of got out of that part and started just doing just the coaching, just the marketing help and that. So yeah. And then as of early this year, we acquired Freedom.com. And in there's a lot of entrepreneurs that we've been able to help and continue to help in virtual summits and membership sites and all things entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and you've been having some incredible success with that. I know I've been following him and am a part of that Freedom.com group and love what you guys got going on there. I was also one of the speakers on your virtual summit, which I love that. Like, it was super cool. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot as well from that. And you guys ran a really successful, really high quality event on that summit. And then, of course, the feedback from all your students has just been amazing, what you guys have been able to do, what you've been able to do and help them with. So I'm really excited to get into some of the nitty gritty here with virtual summits, because our summit hosts are chomping at the bit for success, tips, strategies, and more. So I like to call it the good, the bad, and the beneficial. So before we jump into some of those exact specifics, you said you've run like 5 summits. How many summits have you run kind of in total?
So mine on that niche, it was 5 on that niche. I did 3 on a separate niche, and then I did the virtual summit, and then behind the scenes, they're about anywhere from 20 to 25. I'm trying to think, because it was either behind the scenes, or I was coaching, or I was kind of writing the copy for it, like different type of. I would get plugged in different spots of the process. So about 25. So if overall it'd be about 30. Let's say let's call it 30.
That's incredible. Yeah. So to say you've got some experience with summits, yeah, that's a for sure right there. All right. So I would like to actually talk about 2 things at first, getting started here. Like, what is one, because you've had so much experience and you've seen so many different summits, you've seen summits that have crushed it, you've seen summits that have missed the mark a little bit. Like, what's one thing that kind of sticks out to you when you see any of the summits that have not quite done as well as they should have? Like, what's probably that one factor that they missed that really changed the game for them?
If I was gonna pick a reason that is the most common that I've seen a summit miss the mark, is because of the content. It's actually not the traffic. It's not even the marketing. Is the specific content session and how the content is structured, the depth of the content, and how targeted it is to the audience. So that would be the main reason that I see a lot of summits miss the mark. They have sometimes great speakers, but the content itself is not resonating with the audience.
Excellent point. Now let's have a word from our sponsor.
Virtual Summits software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summits software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
Oh, this is so good. Okay, well, let's dive into this. Let's talk about the content. So can you describe or define, what do you mean when you say the content of the summit? And then let's start walking through some of those different aspects.
Yeah, of course. So a lot of times, and this happens a lot with people that are doing summits for the first time, they want to do a summit about coffee, for example. They do want to do a summit about coffee, and the first thing they do, they start getting speakers. Okay, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, let's talk about that. And they end up with like, oh, let's talk about the history of coffee, or about, coffee roasters in whatever. And they bring all these topics that are kind of like, instead of a progression that would take the audience from A to Z, where the audience gets a result at the end, they're just 20 random interviews about coffee. So it's not a process that they could say, oh yeah, I listened to that interview and I want to listen to it again because I learned this. It's just basically, oh, that's like a radio interview that I listened to once. So let's stay with the example of coffee. If you were to do that in a more structured way, you would target someone like, okay, let's make this someone who would, in the coffee niche, be someone that would pay to get this information. Is it someone that wants to start their own coffee brand? Is it someone that wants to go into the coffee industry? Someone who wants to start a coffee blog? What kind of information do I want to then provide to that person? And then from there, you kind of structure almost like a table of content, almost like an outline of things that you want to say, okay, I want to talk to this person and they will buy this because of this. Now, having said that, there are also, and that's basically for the summit that is basically one-on-one that you're monetizing because of the content of the summit. That's an approach that I think has to be very clear, very specific to its for. Now, there's also the summit that is just a brand builder that you want to sell them coffee later, right? So you just want to become the person or the brand that launched this summit about coffee, and then you want to sell them stuff that is coffee beans, coffee products. And that's in that case, the content is less important as far as the depth it goes. And that's more of a step of kind of planting the flag of you're the brand that is running the coffee event. Like one example that I have is like, I would love for like something like Home Depot or Lowe's to do like the woodworking summit and bring 20 speakers on woodworking and then go sell them the tools, right? Like, I think that's something that just kind of like makes sense. Nobody will buy, I mean, maybe some people, but they don't care about who buys because of the content. They'll buy because of what they're selling in the back end. That's a different situation that the most traditional summit, that is the actual content, is the product. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, it makes so much sense right now. And I know there's somebody literally right now running to GoDaddy to buy like woodworkingsummit.com.
By Lowe's.
And buy Lowe's. And all you got to do is be an affiliate of Lowe's, and then they're going to crush it. Like, this is such a great idea. And I love how you've broken this down. Like, I'm over here taking notes on this because this is great. Like, so differentiating between monetization from your summit content or brand builder where you're going to monetize something on the back end. I love this. I want to go even deeper. So you talked about the table of contents. So I think this is a genius. And honestly, out of all the summits I've ever seen, I haven't seen any table of contents on a summit, which I think from this point forward, you will see that in all of my summits. Can we talk through the table of contents? Like, how would you, if you were going to work this, like as if I was a new summit host, I don't know what I'm doing, how would we set up our table of contents? And just give me an example of that.
Sure. Yeah. A good way to do it is so it goes back to who is it that the summit is for. So once you have that somewhat of a clear image of that, you can go to Amazon and actually look at books that are there, that are popular, that have good reviews, and just start collecting tables of content from those books and see what areas are hitting, see what areas they're common in different books, see what areas you think are something that may be in a book or two. That's kind of one part of it. The other part is, are you familiar with Udemy.com? Udemy, it's by definition something that people go to learn. So they pay for the course. Just go through anything that's related to your market and see what the curriculum of that course is. And then you can see which ones have the biggest audience, the best reviews, and go through the entire table of content. And then finally pay attention to what your market is doing, right? You can obviously, the way I started with the prepper niche, I started a group, like it was probably about 8 months before I even had a summit. I had a Facebook group, and I was just like listening, putting content out there, curating content, surveying them, and getting a lot of ideas and collecting those ideas. And that kind of became my go-to.
That's incredible. Like, hopefully you summit hosts out there listening into this, you are writing this down, because this is incredible information. If you're confused at all with how you should be building out your summit, maybe you have that idea already, you know what you want to do it about, you know why you want to do it. Jose is just giving you an incredible resource or a credible strategy on how you can actually map out a successful virtual summit. And then reverse engineering that, as you've mentioned before, Jose, you would then just plug in the appropriate speakers to those specific topics or content, right?
Right. And that's another thing. When it comes to something like the approach you monetizing the content, you want to be as specific as you can with the sessions and the individual sessions, because it allows you to go deeper in the content. It allows you to get more in depth with that, but also allows you to get the right person and the right speaker that's their superpower, right? So like an example that I typically give is like, are you familiar with Ben Settle? No, so Ben Settle is a really good email marketer, but he also has a podcast, and he also has a lot of courses, but his strength is email marketing. So if I have a summit and one of the topics is email marketing, I could talk to Ben about courses, I could talk to Ben about podcasting, but I really want to talk to him about his email marketing. So that allows you to find the superpower of that speaker and plug it into that specific session. And it allows you, it's kind of setting yourself up for success, because you know that person already has great content, and that's a specialty. It does two things. It helps you get great content, and people love to talk about stuff they know. So it's like it probably lowers the bar of resistance when you're asking them to come on and speak about whatever that is they're speaking.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that across the board. When you reach out to somebody about their zone of genius, they're much more likely to go ahead and agree to that than if you're reaching out to something they do as like a side project or just a part of their business that they don't really like either love or it's not a strong suit. So that's a great point there. Now we're on fire with this, Jose. I'm going to keep pushing into this because this is some amazing information. So now we've got, like, we understand the conceptual aspect. We can kind of see where we're going. I also, whether we're monetizing the content or we're building the brand to monetize on the back end with something we're going to be selling, we figured out how we can kind of set up this content by either using books to see what's hot there and then looking at the table of contents, going to Udemy, for example, seeing what resources are super popular there and using that. This is amazing strategies. Now let's actually dive into the actual content. We now have our speaker. What do you recommend as far as that? Because I see everything from interviews to presentations to hybrid forms of that. Like, what do you recommend, or is there more than one recommendation for something specific?
So it could be tricky depending on the speaker and depending the type of relationship you have with the speaker. Somebody who's brand new as a host, or somebody who's brand new, trying to have someone who's well known to create a presentation for them might be a pretty hard thing to ask. But an hour on the phone or an hour interview, that might be a lot easier to get. So initially, and this is the route I went, most of the sessions are going to be interviews if you're just starting out. In my experience, after you build some sort of a reputation, or if you have already some sort of reputation, there might be people, and there are people, in fact, that will be just really wanting to set up a session that is just them presenting, and just that they even give you the content. So it depends on where you are in that spectrum. When it comes to interviews, I've always go through that person. So I have a topic, and I prep really, really in depth for interviews. So what I do, I basically know what I'm talking about as far as the topic, and then go to that person's resources to see what books they have, to see what podcasts they've done, what interviews they've done in the past, where it relates to the topic. And if I see a question that I hear questions or read something that I want to explore, I obviously I make a note of it, but I send them ahead of time an outline of the questions or the topics that we're gonna cover, and always have the parenthesis possible follow-up, because obviously you want to leave. You don't want to say these are the questions and have them just prep for that. Just basically say there might be some follow-up to this. So go in depth as if you were trying to teach this, or if you see a question and about that topic popping up a lot on your social media platforms or in the surveys that you've done, that's something you definitely want to ask. And when you get an answer, try to get as much information as you can. Try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know anything, but wants to learn it. And so a lot of times I frame the questions as, all right, somebody brand new to this, what would you say is kind of the first thing they need to do X, Y, and Z? And that puts the author, sometimes they're book authors, but the expert in a framework. Okay, so if somebody I'm teaching that's brand new, what is the first thing I'm going to tell them? And that sets you up really well to do kind of like a step-by-step type of approach. Once you get, if you get the answer, the follow-up, you can say, okay, I did this. After that, what would you say? Somewhat to like what you're doing, right? You kind of talk to me from high level to lower level to more granular, and that's kind of how I go about it. Always leaving the door open for follow-up and stuff. But I would definitely do a lot of prep. So the worst feeling, and this happened to me early on, was to talk about a specific topic and leave a question out that that person knows, and that it's something that your audience would definitely benefit from. Like it happened to me, somebody who was really a NASA engineer, and we're talking about magnetic pulse, some weird prepper stuff. And then after the fact, I then kind of started reading his book, and I was like, oh man, I didn't ask him about this and this and this. This would have been amazing content. So do that before the interview, so you don't miss stuff like that. So basically, that's what I would say.
Oh, that's such great information right there. And yeah, that would read the book before the interview. I love that. That's great insight, great information. And actually, we've had John Lee Dumas from EO Fire. here on the podcast, and he's, one of the top interviewers in the world. And one of the suggestions he also mentioned is stay curious. I know I've made the mistake many times in the past of having these questions. Of course, that gives us a framework or something, a guideline, but in the past, just sticking straight to the questions. And I see this often with newer summit hosts as well. They're like not even listening to the speaker. They're busy like reading the next question. Like,
right.
Just listen. Actually, if we just took the time and listen, which is exactly what's happening right here. None of this is exactly what I thought we were going to be talking about on this episode, but it's so important because I'm listening, I'm hearing the value in it, and it's information that's valuable for me and everybody else that's listening. So for you, some hosts,
one thing I was going to say, not because you did this to me or anything, but like one thing that I notice a lot is like they bring someone on, and then I'm the host, and I speak for like 10 of the 15 minutes of the interview. And like, what is the purpose of having someone who's an expert at something and then you talking the whole time, right? And I hear like they go into these tangents, like you only have this person for a specific finite period of time. Like you can always turn the camera on and talk to your audience about whatever you want, or once the session is over, you can turn the camera on and say, hey, these are my thoughts. But once you have them on, just take as much time on them. Like just try to get as much time from them, because obviously those things are fleeting, right? You only have that period of time, and with the content that you can get from them, you can maximize it to the most with your own thoughts. But if you're giving your own thoughts in the 40 minutes you have, and 20 minutes of it is you talking, you just lost 20 minutes worth of content that you could have from that person. That's a mistake that I see a lot of people make. And it's typically because they're nervous during the interview. They want to be oh, I should be interacting more. But in reality, you just let them talk, interrupt them less. And unless they're going down a path that you not think is appropriate, you kind of bring them back. And that's kind of your role, like knowing what questions to ask, let him answer, and then keep him like focused on the topic. That's kind of where, when I think that's a lot of the things that beginners make. So I have a few more mistakes that I've seen, but we can talk about it later.
I think this would be a great opportunity to give a shout out to our sponsor, Virtual Summit Software.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your Virtual Summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
Yeah, no, this is great. So stay on point, let your speaker do as much of the talking as possible, and of course, stay curious. So I'd love to hear right now with those type of content. So obviously we've just gone through how to maximize the most from the interview, make sure it's good. And this is so important because, a poor interview is not going to sell. The content's not going to sell. So this is great. Now, out of those other versions, let's say I am somebody who could get my speaker to submit a presentation if I wanted. What have you seen as performing better? Does an interview actually perform better? Does a presentation only, or does a hybrid version of that work better?
I like the hybrid more, because I feel like I have, as a host, I have a lot more control, and at any time I could just jump in and to give my thoughts and content, and through the editing, and kind of jump on board and do that stuff. If you do like just the interviews, which is fine, you could do just the interview. What I don't like is actually just the presentations, because it feels more like a lecture. It feels like there's a lot less interaction. I feel like I'm back to school to a degree, and it's some people may like that. I personally don't like it, and I've also don't see a drastic benefit to doing that over the other as far as the quality of content that you get, because you lose the ability to ask questions that the audience has to a degree. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen as well from my end of it. And the presentations also, you're missing out. Like if they just submit a presentation and you're not on there at all with them, you're missing out on the relationship aspect, which is huge from the summit's perspective. Right?
Absolutely.
So let's jump in a couple more of the mistakes that you've seen on summits.
So, and this is something actually it's kind of a good segue because I've seen this happen both in interviews, but I've also seen it happen in lots of presentations and it's about, let's say the session is, I don't know, 60 minutes and 20 minutes of it is a bio of the expert. If you get a presentation, the only way you can like maybe edit it out after the fact, which is something that it's actually good. Like you can edit anything out, right? So that's something to keep in mind. You don't have to accept it as it is. But when you're doing an interview also, you have someone who, if someone is coming to a summit as an attendee, yeah, they want to know who they're listening to in the context of how it helps them or how it gets them to the result they're trying to achieve. A long bio on the speaker or a long story of, like, a lot of times, and this is kind of the question, that same mistake, that it sounds like a radio interview rather than a content session. Somebody asks, hey, so tell her when was the first time you got into this thing? And then the follow-up is like, okay, so when did you first know that you liked this? And then the next question is like, oh, so, and what books do you recommend on the top? I mean, the books, I guess, it's kind of relevant to a degree, but you know what I mean? They're like very, they're conversational for sure, but there's no really, I'll listen to a story if there's a teaching point there, but otherwise, like, you listen to a session, maybe two, and they're all like that, you're wasting people's time. So that's kind of where I see one of the biggest mistakes is like that story. Like, you care who's talking to you, but not to the degree there has to be some meat to it.
I mean, this has been such great insight right here from a content perspective, from the interview perspective, I mean, which is the heart of a virtual summit. Jose, you've given us such a great insight into how we should take this, how we should direct it to set ourselves up for success here. This has been tremendous. I'd like to pivot just a little bit here with the remaining time we have and go into the marketing aspect of a summit and talk about, I know you've had a lot of success with a paid marketing strategy or paid marketing aspect. Can we talk through why you love that? And then maybe some success tips or strategies in that area.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of by accident that I realized how powerful it was, because so when I went into the prepper niche, there were a handful of people who understood what affiliate marketing was. There was probably, I got about 3 affiliates, and then the rest was my own traffic. And then at the end of the day, my thought, and this is when Facebook was easy, right? This is when, like, on the old days of Facebook. So I would just put out the ads out there, and they started converting, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and I was like, all right, so I will do this all day. And then, kind of by accident, it was a split. It was like 70% my own traffic, 30% affiliates, and I thought that's what it was for everybody. Really, I thought, okay, so everybody's doing this. But when I learned, I didn't go through a summit course. I didn't go through a summit kind of like official course to do it. So I didn't, at the time, I didn't realize how heavy it was to rely on affiliates. And then when it came time to, okay, I kind of caught up to the affiliate. It was very much like a begathon to a degree. And this is just obviously my experience. Like, hey, can you email this? Hey, I had to like constantly be reminding people. And that was probably partly because I was doing a bad job of giving them tools to do it. And I didn't know that at the time. But when I was doing it, it was just kind of like, emailing, hey, can you email this out? Blah, blah, blah. I'll give you, 80% commission, which is what I was giving at the time. And dude, I just kind of got sick of it, because I think I did it the wrong way. So I got kind of sick of it that way. But then that also gave me a lot of leverage, a lot of power, that I was just relying on my own traffic. And that was mostly Facebook ad. At the time, we were doing a lot of Instagram. Instagram was very organic, so we didn't have to pay a lot of money. We were doing kind of just posting the opting a lot of times on, and at the time I was really effective. But Facebook was really the key to getting that traffic, and it really helped us out, because from that moment on, we did the first one, got good results with Facebook. The second one got bigger. The third one got bigger, and then we just had this massive audience that were obviously collecting their emails, and we were able to do so many things with it that we still do it, like, to this day. We do a lot of email marketing, but it was all based on that kind of like owning my own. It felt like I with paid ads in my own traffic, I kind of own my own destinies. I didn't have to rely on others to mail. Also, in the market there were some offers that were very weird that I felt like I had to mail out if they mail out for me, and I didn't want to do that. So that sometimes you kind of feel like you have to mail for them because they mailed for you, and that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So for those reasons, basically.
Now let's have a quick word from our sponsor.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
This is like a way to own the whole thing, control it, so you have the final say in what goes in and what goes out of it, which I love that. And I mean, who wouldn't love a consistent, like, well-known strategy to put out that brings people into your summit? Because I know a huge complaint that you've probably heard as well, I know I've heard it over and over again, is my summit didn't do very well because my speakers didn't email for me. So this is a great way to overcome that. So can we let's dig deeper into it, like the strategy with a paid marketing. Do you have a framework maybe, or what is your thought process as you set up your? So
it's not, and I kind of stumbled upon it, and it wasn't too complex. The one thing that I'll say with that is you probably will have a smaller event at first. If you only rely on your own traffic, it will be smaller, but it's a strong stepping stone. It's a strong foundation for that, because you're also learning a lot about your audience. And then from there, like we got a good take on the first one, and it just got better as we went on and on. And had we done the affiliate marketing right off the bat, we probably had a bigger first event, but then we have to like figure out the rest. Like one thing that was funny on I think it was between our second and third event. Our third event did less overall revenue, but we got more take home because we didn't have to pay out a lot of the affiliates. So it was just like really interesting dynamic where it was like, wait, we made less money total, but we took more money home overall. And so that was really interesting. And so with Facebook ad, it's tricky because it's very depending on your market. It's a few things. It's like the level of market sophistication and the awareness of the market of you. Because if I was in the market, luckily, that had never seen or had seen very few summits in the past. So when they see something like this, it was like a brand new thing. It was new and different. They were like blown away by the content. They were blown away by the speakers. And the whole thing is, well, you're telling me I could watch this whole thing for free and own it for $70? Yeah, I'm in. So it was kind of like just advertising an event, just a big banner, big event. And that was something that it worked out for us really well. Interestingly, when we were doing the Virtual Summit Expo Summit, we had the challenge that was, so just going back, like everybody knows what surviving is, right? So we don't have to sell surviving. But the Virtual Summit, you have to sell the concept of the Virtual Summit, and that you have the content to provide for that. So what we had to do was, and this is something that worked really well, we did instead of going straight to the opt-in and the content, we had an ad to a blog post that was very hyper targeted. So it was basically, unless you were running a virtual summit or knew what a virtual summit was, you didn't care about it. So I think it was like three reasons why your virtual summit sucks or something like that. It may have not been those exact, but that was the overall feeling, like why your virtual summit is failing, something like that. So I knew that if somebody clicks on that, it's someone that's definitely interested in virtual summits or knows what a virtual summit is, right? To a degree, there's some obviously variances there, but so so the challenge wasn't to finding people online that knew what virtual summits were right off the bat. I just threw it at entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and all the people that I knew could be likely, into a virtual summit. So took that piece of content, as strongest piece of content as I could make. Then everybody who linked that that we pixel them. And then once we pixel them, we retarget those people with the opt-in, and we created lookalike audiences of that audience to the opt-in directly, because we just assumed that Facebook gave us people that were clicking on this. The lookalike will probably be people that be into virtual summits. And it's funny because we ran that in parallel to just the opt-in, and it did so much better, even with the double traffic, than the lead cost for that was so much better than just direct to the opt-in, because it was harder targeted. And once we had the lookalike, that audience is what if we want to market something else that is specific virtual summit, that's our go-to audience. So that's kind of the difference there.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great strategy right here. Just to recap this as we get ready to wrap this episode up. So running an ad to actually create a custom audience around the people that are your ideal avatar for your summit. So the example that we could use, an example, if you're trying to do something in Facebook ads, you would run an ad out to entrepreneurs, for example, in general, with something super specific about Facebook ads. Anybody that clicks, or if it's a video, spends X amount of time on it, goes into a custom audience, you run your summit ad to that custom audience, create a lookalike audience. Genius. Yep. That's super I mean, that's an amazing Facebook paid ad strategy right there. So Jose, as we wrap this episode up here, I want to first off say anybody that's interested in getting more information or more insight into, the content, the ad strategy, or anything really with virtual summits, you should highly, highly reach out to Jose here, over at freedom.com, Virtual Summit Lab. We will also have links inside the show notes at podcast.virtualsummits.com because Jose is got such a great mind for this type of thing, as well as a ton of experience in running successful summits. So Jose, as we wrap this up, I kind of want to leave it over with you. Do you have any kind of final words of wisdom or parting pieces of advice you'd like to leave with the audience?
So one or two. So basically, the virtual summits, it's a lot of moving parts. Just the first thing I say, step number one is getting a date set up. You have no idea how powerful a deadline it is until you try it. Because for some reason, if we're like, I've tried this, I'm going to write an ebook, I'm going to create this and this and that. And like, unless I have a deadline, it just kind of gets lingering and procrastinating. Set a deadline. Tell people about it. A deadline you're going to be held accountable to, and that's the way to get it done. That's first step. And number two, don't get behind. To me is like one thing that I did all the interviews, and at the end, like, oh, I'll edit it later. Like, no, as soon as you have an interview, edit it, get it out of the way, get it set up. That's it. Because otherwise, it'll be a monster at the end of when you're trying to put everything together. So that's the things those are the two things that I'll say, and don't be afraid to try it. I mean, you're definitely how powerful summits are, even if it's just brand building. I think there's no better way to break into a market than a virtual summit. I don't think there's a better way to launch a business than a virtual summit, because everything it's exponentially faster. Just kind of like it's a shortcut to a degree to where you want to be, because podcast, blogging, and the whole thing, it takes a long time. I think summits is just kind of like an express lane to a good point, a good start.
Such great insight, such great advice. I agree with you 1,000% on that, Jose, but you already knew that. So yes, thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to give us this amazing information, the content, the structure of it, the paid marketing strategy, all of it absolute gold. So again, thanks, Jose, for taking time out of your schedule to be with us.
My pleasure, brother.
And for you summit hosts out there listening in, thank you too for spending this time with us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
I want to end this episode by saying to all the summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.